The amygdala is like your lens that you see the world through. It's a part of the body that really like has a lot to do with our emotions. So in general, it's not just the amygdala, we have the limbic system. And the limbic system supports our emotional behavior, our motivation, and our long-term memory and then olfaction. So a lot to do with smelling. So look at smelling is really important to the nervous system as well. Hence the conversation or, like comment about bringing around certain smells within a restorative class and that being the thing that changed somebody's breathing. All of a sudden, they slow down, take a deep breath, bring in that like, oh, whatever it is, lavender, ylang ylang, maybe not orange, maybe not something like invigorating for a chill practice, but like all of a sudden everything shifts and we can do that with smell because our senses are totally linked to our nervous system. So basically, we're not getting too deep into the structures, but we've got like the frontal lobe of the brain. So that's the thinking part. This isn't even fully formed until the age of 25. I always talk about teenagers like you're dealing with somebody without a frontal lobe. Remember that. Thinking part, our reward center. We have something called basal ganglia that are really important for like the posture, our posture and our tone with emotional states. Interesting. The anterior thalamus is really like the switchboard of the brain, the hippocampus. It's big on recognition, habituation, and memory. Again, the amygdala define and create a recognition to emotional response, connection to our olfactory sense. The hypothalamus coordinates with the autonomic nervous system and our hormones. So that's a connection between the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and the endocrine system. And then we have the pituitary gland, which regulates our growth, our metabolism, and our reproduction. Um, I'm not always like I talk a lot and describe a lot in visuals, but really I'm a more auditory person. I've always felt like having the picture of these things within the brain isn't really that helpful. There's just parts of our nervous system that direct certain things. We're not looking at a lot of them. We're not going to be introducing any of these things within our classes that we're teaching. The one thing that I might talk about is the amygdala because it is the lens. And it's really important to remember because it's emotional responses. We're about to dive into emotions. And I talk about the fact that there are only four of them, there are only four emotions. We'll dive into that and talk about that deeper. One of the four emotions is fear. So the amygdala is really connected to our fear response. It's the lens in which we're looking out into the world. And this amygdala, I always say, how do you know that what you're seeing is what somebody else is seeing? You first of all, you don't because I know, like I was raised in the same house as my brother and my sister, and all three of us had a completely different experience. So we don't see the same things. In fact, I had a conversation with my daughter, a little bit of a heated conversation, but even in me saying, like you said, which is not part of the agreements, I heard, I heard you say this. And she'll say, I said this. And they're completely different. So even what I heard based on what she said, our experiences are completely different. So I'll talk about the amygdala more than anything else. So what we know about the autonomic nervous system is it's involuntary. It regulates the function of our internal organs. It's part of the peripheral nervous system. So it regulates our involuntary nervous system. The somatic nervous system is voluntary. It regulates our voluntary movements. It is also part of the peripheral nervous system because it's directly related to the skeletal muscles. And we are in control of this system. So, this is kind of where somatic yoga practices come in. Because what we're doing is we're using the somatic nervous system or our voluntary movement to connect to things that we're involuntarily like holding, to release and like essentially feel better, just to put it in like super simple terms. Coming back, right, to where we originally were, the peripheral nervous system, the motor nervous system, the somatic and autonomic nervous system. So the auto takes us to these places. The somatic is we're using the things that we can voluntarily do of our own direction to kind of like, I don't know if like it controls the word that I'm looking for, but like rewire the autonomic nervous system because it's wired based on our behaviors, things that happen in our lives. Like the nervous system in general is about us staying alive, and part of us staying alive is like having things be easy, like efficient. We don't want to waste a lot of energy. So if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, the nervous system is like, I got you, boo. Let me just like make this autopilot so that you don't have to do a bunch of work. You don't have to think about it. I write with my right hand. I have spent many years writing with my right hand. It's very easy. It's almost automatic, right? It's default. But if I start to write with my left hand, hold on a second. I got to like involve so many things. It takes way longer. Like there's a lot of work going on in my body to write with my left hand. It's so easy to do with my right. This is one example of many things, our emotional states. When I feel this emotion, what's the reaction? Over time, if this emotion comes and this is the reaction, it's just easier, more efficient if my nervous system makes it automatic and I don't have to work so hard at it. So, rewiring is becoming aware of this and then changing it. So, I want you to think about this in general, period. Well, let's talk about before when I started to discover this because I'm actually pretty good at writing with my left hand now. It's still not as good as my right, but it doesn't take as much energy as it did the first time I wrote with my left hand. So let's just do it. Let's just do it for a second. Take your pen and your paper. And then whatever hand you write with, your dominant hand, take a moment and write, Hi, my name is, and then write your name. Okay. And then switch. And then just be present with the difference of writing between these two hands, like the time, the energy, the amount of like just presence it takes, but then the final product. Right? I put all this time, all this energy, it's blurring it, darn it. Okay, unblur. I took all this time, all this energy, and it looks like crap. What? And I think it's really like real time noticing of what happens when we start to do something different and how quick and easy it is to dismiss it, because that's how hard it is to rewire the nervous system. Literally, if I'm just like, okay, you're good. Now, don't ever use your dominant hand again and only write with your non-dominant hand. Well, I mean, eventually you'll get pretty good with your non-dominant hand, but it's gonna be like kind of painful. My to-do list, like I don't even know if I want to write a to-do list now, and I love lists, but it's not gonna look neat. So, emotional responses, take out the emotion. Yesterday we were talking a little bit about like emotion. Emotions are irrational. Okay. So the idea with emotional intelligence is to recognize and then like respond from not emotion as opposed to react from emotion. So we've been taught since we were a baby how to respond or react in certain situations. This entire practice is becoming aware of those reactions and then making a different choice if they're not helpful for us, which I would say 99% of the time they're not, right? So the idea is like actually rewiring, and the rewiring, taking emotion out, is as complicated and difficult as changing the hand you write with. It's not an emotional thing at all. It's just about doing something different. And different takes a lot of time, energy, focus. And what I already do is so much easier that I will usually default, especially when I'm unconscious, to what I have done. People will then name this human nature. It's not human nature. It's a pattern. It's just easier to call it human nature because then I don't have to make a change because that's how I was born. And it's not how anyone was born. Nobody was born writing. We were we were taught to write. We were taught to print. So writing is not human nature, but it's easy to say that about our reactions or what we want in life or like anything else. It's just if I say that, then I don't have to make a change. I don't have to do anything different. This is just the way I am. And that's, I mean, one of the meditations is, who am I? So that we can recognize that we are none of the labels. Those are labels and we identify with them. So if I could like summarize it into like easy, what we are introducing to people on the mat is how to write with their non-dominant hand, just to make a different choice and do things differently. And in order to like, the only way, and I talked about this yesterday, to actually make that shift is repetition. And yet we seem to be in a modern day society addicted to like change and new and different instead of reading the same book. All the books are saying the same thing. They're just saying it in a different way. So we could just read the same book, especially one that like hits for us. Because that's the reason for narration, like, is so that different words will hit people in a way that they can understand. And so by constantly seeking beyond what has already like made a difference for us is bypassing. So reading the same book can help us to go that much deeper than seeking out a new book that says the same thing in a different way. Repetition, repetition. The only way I'm going to get good at it is if I keep doing it. And the only way that I can keep doing it is by making a conscious choice to use my left hand instead of my right hand. So that's emotional intelligence is making a conscious choice to notice, to not react. And I am just sharing from a place of like, I mean, I had somebody say something to me as on an Instagram post. I mentioned this yesterday, and it was about I'm tattooed and obese, so like basically, why would anybody listen to me? So immediately I'm like, fuck you, right? This tattooed obese body has run a marathon and climbed a mountain, like fuck you. And then I was like, okay, slow down. So then I had talked to my Facebook ads person and was like, okay, she's like, let me take care of it, So, okay, fine. And then the next thing I know, I got a message the other day and it was like, oh, just another influencer telling us how we're wrong or something like that. I immediately jumped on it. Like, Clint, I already know, don't take a couple days, right? But there I went and I said, oh, just another, of course, using quotes, I think just another troll hater comment from an anonymous, faceless, nameless Instagram account. Like, so I called somebody a name. I mean, I said I didn't actually, if we want to like pluck hairs. I didn't. I said it was a troll hater comment. But then of course the person responds with troll hater. If you saw my face, does it like totally sidelining the whole conversation? So please chat. Help me respond to this comment in a way that's like fuck you, but also not super fuck you. And so it was just redirecting back to the post, which is really helpful. So that's yeah, I'm still reacting. And then of course I don't delete things. So I'm like, oh, there I am being a freaking human again. So I'm constantly like, I know, don't respond. Breathe, take some time, utilize the tools that I have. Instead, I reacted. So the idea with emotional intelligence is to not do that. To realize like, oh, that's a comment that's probably going to set me off. How would I take some deep breath and then give it some space and not respond right now because I can access this at any time. And so working on it, getting better at it. Still not perfect. I still just automatically write with my right hand sometimes. It's funny, I had an issue with renters in my home, and I usually do 24 to 48 hours is my like kind of rule that I don't always listen to. And I think it was like 24 hours when I responded. But I think like there could be further investigation into that because I responded 24 hours while I was still in my home cleaning it. Like I was still cleaning after 24 hours. And it was I was ready to burn my own house down. It was so disgusting. And it took me, I can't remember, but it took over 4 days to get the house. And I mean cleaning pretty much nonstop. And I'm pretty anal, but it took like pretty much 4 days to get the house settled. And it's not a big house. Like that's how disgusting it was. And I responded after 24 hours, and it was still. I had said, what did I say? Oh, when I was interviewing them, I said, listen, I'm very anal. And it's important that, my things are kept very clean. And this is not like my best yogi moment because what I said to him was when I mentioned that I was anal, it wasn't that I wanted to be by you. Like, whoa, Colin, so inappropriate. Like, I was mad. So, yeah, I could have waited maybe even 24 hours after I was done cleaning my house. Yeah, so still working on it. But I just want to demonstrate, like, for sure on the self-love journey of like becoming aware, since 2019, on the somatic journey of like becoming aware of emotions and releasing, like 20, can we say like 20? I mean, always I would say, but like becoming really aware of it, 2021, 2022. And so here we are, 2026, and I'm still completely inappropriate and like fly off the handle. Um, so it is a work in progress. And then I need to remind myself of these times so that I can have more empathy for the fact that I introduce this and people don't change immediately. Like, and I mean that there is a part of me that's attached to people like shifting and having a different experience, not changing for me. But like having, I just taught you, so now you know. So like do it instead of coming back to me with the same issues over and over again. Because like I just told you what to do though. So it is helpful to humble myself because I'm still a work in progress and I'm understanding this on such a deep level. So it takes time, and that humbling brings me empathy. Okay. So I had mentioned the enteric nervous system. It's of like of note and of mention. It's basically your gut-brain connection. There's a lot of conversation around this, I would say. If you love this and want to dive deeper into it, I encourage you to. We're not spending a lot of time here. 30-hour nervous system or 30-hour anatomy training does kind of dive into the connection of the nervous system with the immune system, with the digestive system, like going deeper into these connections and how they work and organ systems, et cetera, et cetera. We're not diving too deep into that. I remember when I went to med school, it was like they had given me the doctor lecturing on the gut, the digestive system, had given me like words to what I had noticed for years. And he had just said, like, if there are, um, he put it in like a doctor term that wasn't like the most neutral or proper languaging, but basically he said, head problems, gut problems, head problems, period. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense to me based on the way that people would present, especially people that that would be like repeat people that would come in over and over again with the same kind of things that were going on. They would have increased visits when they weren't well mentally, which would then exacerbate physical symptoms. I believe it was that way as opposed to the other way, but it's saying both ways that they would then have mental health issues based on physical symptoms worsening. So you can imagine that eating unwell would trigger anxiety. Not sleeping well would trigger anxiety. Like physical things that are presenting are also internal. Yeah, there's a mesh-like network called a mesentery of neurons embedded in the layers of the GI tract. So, disordered breakdown in the gut due to imbalanced microbiology can alter production of many important neurotransmitters. So, there's a lot going on in the gut or the enteric nervous system that is telling the body and the brain a lot of information. So, gut support in the way of probiotics, improved diet can reverse and promote this proper neurotransmitter production. So it goes into it like basically like what you're eating is communicating with your brain. So if you're eating a lot of sugar, then that is being communicated directly to your brain of like needing more sugar. And so there's a lot of like, yeah, I mean, this is a whole thing I don't want to dive too deep into of like parasite cleanses and I mean basically what we eat is really important for our body and our mental health. A little bit of a conversation on pain. Interestingly enough, pain happens in the brain. That was like, wait, what? Hold on. Because if my finger hurts, it's not actually like right there that hurts. This is all happening in my brain. So when we are able to bring ourselves to a parasympathetic nervous system response, our pain will lessen. When we are in a sympathetic nervous system response, because everything's just firing, it's an increase in our pain. And it's not actually like happening on the finger, which is a little bit mind blown. Even if you like see the finger cut open and like all the things coming out, it's there's a nerve that's sending a signal to your brain that there's an issue there. And what's happening is it's all taking place here. So when there's this idea of like it's all in your mind, it's also very true. It's just for so long been like it's in your head kind of idea. Like, yeah, it is actually. But it's been a way to dismiss people instead of actually like diving deeper into that and communicating how that is true and then communicating how what's going on in our external environment is shaping our internal environment or vice versa. And how being in a like a safer space actually decreases pain. This is an important part of things because a lot of people coming into somatic yoga will be in pain because when we're in a stress response, this can translate to chronic pain. So, putting us in a parasympathetic response increases circulation, which is really important for our healing. It restores pressure gradients by helping with the gliding of tissues, which also causes pain, right? The if tissues aren't able to glide because there's scar tissue and other issues, that's pain. That's sending different signals to our body to do different things, which sometimes like create more problems. Example, osteoarthritis. Overall, when we decrease stressors, we restore our nervous system. So we move from that disintegration to regeneration. So when pain happens in the brain, pain is real. It's your friend. It keeps you safe. But the sensors on our nerve cells change in response to chemicals, temperature, stretch. This is constantly happening, yet they only live for a few days. So pain is more subjective, pain is personal, pain is normal, pain is real. The idea is they're more danger sensors because pain and tissue damage are rarely like relatable. In fact, if we like tear a tendon, which is how the muscle is attached to the body, we could like tear it completely off and barely feel anything, or have this microscopic tear and not be able to move. So there's more to our pain than I think what we've necessarily been taught. There are different symptoms of chronic stress. We can notice this in people, notice this in ourselves. bring these awarenesses to our class to let people know, like, oh, wow, I am experiencing chronic stress, muscle tension, TMJ, grinding our teeth, pain is a symptom of chronic stress, headaches, weakness, balance issues, and decreased athletic performance. Also, like IBS, like tummy stuff, over and under eating, craving food, different types of foods, any type of absorption or elimination problems. Just think of what we were learning about the nervous system and then connect that to, like, oh, yeah, I mean, if I'm not digesting because I'm chronically stressed, then I'm going to have issues with absorbing nutrients and pooping, right? Excess cortisol, suppression of the immune system, low cortisol, low energy, fatigue, blood sugar issues, skin reaction, always stress, always, 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 period. Metabolic syndromes, respiratory issues, shortness of breath, asthma being triggered, inflammation, high blood pressure, irregular heart rate, sleep disturbances, breathing issues, sexual and reproductive function issues, psychological issues, including loss of focus and inability to concentrate, a poor memory, decreased cognitive function, anxiety and depression, decreased ability to function effectively, our relationships, our social interactions, our workplace, our job performance, our sense of self, our relationships, our workplace interactions, our job performance, all of these signs and symptoms of chronic stress. All right. So I had mentioned the amygdala, and then we went on to another journey. I wanted to finish off by talking about these structures. So I had mentioned that the amygdala is our lens. Let's talk about this as how it works as the lens. So imagine that you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you hear dogs barking and then you get attacked by dogs. Okay. There's a thing that happens in the brain. Um, and okay, let's say it's dealt with. We're talking about like a little while later, 6 months down the road, you're walking down a street and you hear dogs bark. Your body is going to react like you're being attacked. So the amygdala is really the one that's like creating this whole loop response that happens. I'm going to go to the nervous system because it's like I've got it written out quite well here. I made my own design. There we go. Um, I explain it really well in here, so I want to come back to this. The amygdala is like an emotional alarm system. Okay. And what it does is it creates like this filter, this lens, this like I used the explanation of like a tag to trigger the sympathetic nervous system. So what happens is the brain receives this information. In the example, dogs are barking. Signal travels to the thalamus, which is kind of like the relay system, which directs the information to the amygdala. The amygdala processes like what the dog's barking means and then sends a signal to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus says, we're going to die. So it triggers the sympathetic response, which the body then gets ready and reacts for the dogs coming to attack it. It's a quick response that is more worried about you living than what's actually going on. This is happening all the time in the fact of like when we have emotions, when we have thoughts, the current financial system, like a lot of things that are happening, we have wired this response within our bodies. So the thalamus also sends a signal to the auditory cortex, and the cortex like will evaluate the sound. It's really about the senses, like what's going on. So the dog barking, is it like an aggressive one or a playful one? In this case, the dog had attacked us, had bit us. So it's not a conditioned stimulus. Like we're not really like leaning into, is it a happy bark or a sad bark or an aggressive bark? Basically, it's a bark, and now it's associated with being bitten. So, it really, in order to like change that fear related to barks, it's going to take this work that I was talking about of deconditioning and like changing the narrative. And because it's like to save you, and it happens without the involvement of your frontal lobe, there's there's not a lot of like thought that goes into it. It becomes a reaction. And then it's stored in like the hippocampus is involved. And the hippocampus is it's really involved with our memory. So it takes note of like of details of the environment, and then can integrate that into the danger signal. So this happens, let's just say we got bit. Now there's a feeling in the body, like a memory, a fear memory in the body, and it has involved all of these areas of the brain and therefore the nervous system. So the amygdala, the hippocampus, some of the prefrontal cortex, which is decision making and planning. When it becomes like a quick one, like an event, it takes out the 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 frontal lobe, the decision making, the thinking brain, and it just activates the amygdala so that we have this fear response first. Even if there's not a dog present, we're just hearing barking. So this is how memories, unprocessed emotions, and unresolved traumas can continuously set off our fear response, which then creates issues like anxiety disorders and post traumatic stress disorder. It's pretty amazing, especially when we're unconscious to it. So this is why the opposite, like what we're leading people in, what we're offering people, the opposite, processing emotions, taking a look at unresolved traumas, reliving memories is quite beneficial, because then what we're doing is we're rewiring this entire physiological response that's happening every time a dog barks or every time I feel like getting angry. For me, if I feel like getting angry, that's a huge one. I'm like against anger because to me, anger is like violence. So we are working through some pretty deep stuff in this, which is why then yesterday we were talking about like support, and then just being aware of this. So making sure that, people are aware of the possibility of feeling emotions after, and that they have been reminded to like reach out to their support system. So now I want to take all of this information and shift it into emotions.